Okay, everybody. Welcome to the Level Up the Smart Home event. My name is Stacey Higginbotham. I am the host of the Internet of Things podcast and the creator of the Stacey on IoT newsletter. I almost forgot my newsletter, y'all. Welcome to our event. We are going to be talking about what happens when the smart home goes mainstream, and not too much about the technical details, because some of those, I feel like we're going to hear some good news in the next few months about Project Connected Home over IP. We're going to hear, I think, a lot of stuff about connectivity becoming a lot easier, but we're going to talk about the social and the business issues that come with making the smart home more ubiquitous. And I think we're going to have a really great time. We're going to be talking about business models. We're going to be talking about sustainability. We're going to be talking about kind of future cool interactions we might have with the smart home and how we'll get that technology to front of us. And we're going to talk about data privacy, consent, and some, I think, really important stuff that I don't think we're thinking about now, because most of us are probably really nice people and just don't think like that. But we need to. So we're going to kick this off in a minute, but I want to give you a little bit more information about the platform. We're using a platform called Hopin. Ta-da, you're here. And some things to note are there is a chat that you can see on your screen. We want you to talk to us. We'll try to listen. You should talk to your fellow participants, but you should also be kind. Kevin Topol is going to be in the chat when I'm on stage, and I'll be in the chat when he's on stage moderating. But make sure that y'all are nice to each other. That's all. Also, I would love for y'all to take advantage of our expo and networking breaks. It's kind of like networking roulette, where you can click a button and connect with people randomly for 3 minutes. So it's a small amount of time, but you might meet someone really cool. I know that I've met several people who are really cool on our networking breaks. And I think that's pretty much the big things that you need to know. So I also want to thank our sponsors for this event, Silicon Labs and Very. So first up, we're going to be hearing from Johan from Silicon Labs. Hello, Johan Peterson.
Hi, Stacey.
Thank you for sponsoring this so quickly. Why don't you tell us about Silicon Labs and why you're doing this?
Thank you so much, Stacey, and hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here to help kick things off. My name is Johan Peterson, and I help lead smart home efforts at Silicon Labs. And everybody in this audience come with expertise of the smart home. And with the fact that the COVID-19 has turned our lives upside down, we are all in a unique position to address all these new challenges that comes with the way we live in our homes, the way we use our homes. And we really have to come together and work closer together to make this happen and ensure that not only does the product just work, but also keep privacy and sustainability top of mind. And at Silicon Labs, we work with all of you, regardless of what smart home ecosystem you develop for, regardless of what smart home wireless technology you leverage in your offering, whether it's Z-Wave, Zigbee, Thread, Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth. And the industry is finally at a point where everyone recognizes the need to interoperate, even across ecosystems and across wireless technologies. And meanwhile, all these amazing new initiatives are taking place. You do not need to wait. There will continue to be multiple technologies in the smart home, and you should focus on what existing ecosystems you want your solutions to work with. And by using secure wireless multi-protocol platforms, your products will also be ready for what comes in the future. And we recently hosted our first Works With developer event with Stacey as an awesome moderator on our chip panel. And here we had Amazon, Google, SmartThings, Comcast, and many more come together to teach hands-on workshops on how to connect into all these smart home ecosystems. And if you didn't get to join, please go and enjoy those sessions that are available on demand for free. And in general, if you have any plans about smart home product development, go on and come and visit us at our virtual booth at this event. I'd love to also meet you in the virtual chat roulette, and go and visit us at silabs.com. So with that, looking forward to continue working with all of you, and have a great event.
Thank you, Johan. I am so glad that y'all are here. And now we're going to be bringing up our first panel. And we are going to have amazing speakers such as Dave Crosby from Wyze. He is a co-founder at Wyze. We have Jonathan Williams, who is a product manager at Twilio. And we have Scott Harkins, who is, VP and GM of Smart Home at Resideo. Hello, y'all. How are y'all doing today?
Hi, everyone.
Doing great. Hi, everyone. Hi, Stacey.
Hello. All right. We are going to have fun. This panel is all about business models. I know before everyone's like, oh, no, I was not here for that. This is so important. I think we have seen several devices come on the market. We get all excited. We buy them. And then they either brick, like they just stop working, or suddenly we get an email and they're like, if you would like to keep this device working, you need to start paying us $5 a month. And most consumers, they kind of hate that. So we're going to be talking on this panel how to think about building your device so you don't have that, what people building devices need from the platform providers, and hopefully consumers kind of help you understand what happens when you're trying to build a connected device. And if you want, we have a poll so y'all can start filling out things that y'all think will make a great feature that you want to that you would actually pay for. But to kick this off, let's start with Dave. When you are 3 years into building Wyze, and how aware were y'all of the potential for ongoing costs associated with building these connected devices, and how did that influence your design strategy?
Yeah, so we were really aware of this. I mean, the biggest one obviously is the cloud cost. At Wyze, we wanted to offer a product that was vastly different than what our competitors were doing, and without a subscription fee. And so we offered the 14 days of free cloud storage on our WyzeCam. And that was the biggest risk for us because we had to build a model and make assumptions about how long someone would hold the camera before they would either replace it with hopefully a newer model someday or stop using the product. And so that model was a huge risk, obviously, because those costs are enormous, our biggest cost for sure. And just trying to manage that and make sure that we do that correctly and then make adjustments as we go as well. That's been one of our biggest challenges, no doubt.
Yeah. Go on.
And so outside of the cloud cost, I mean, that's the biggest one. That cloud cost is the hardest one to predict. Other than that, it's fairly predictable.
Okay. And why is it hard to predict because you are building a camera and there's like storage issues, or is it just hard to predict because it's just hard to predict?
Yeah. So 14 days, it's just how much are people actually going to use that feature? How much are they actually going to download their videos? And just trying to predict what the average cost is going to be per user, and then put that over a 2 to 3 year span when this industry is changing so much and people are using these products at a different rate. So just trying to figure that out. And then, of course, if we miscalculate that, then how do we adjust that? And so we're not out of business in a year or two. And we've been kind of lucky. We misjudged some stuff, but we got lucky on some other stuff to kind of bounce it out, I guess.
Oh, that's a great business strategy. I might get lucky.
Well, like I said, so our biggest thing is we did misjudge. Like we modeled out a too short of a time on our cloud costs. Like people are using the products longer than we thought, which is great. Our products are lasting longer than we thought, right? It took us longer to come out with our V3 model, which is launching right now, by the way. Actually, in about 45 minutes, the V3 will launch. So we took longer for that to come out to replace that V2. And so the cloud costs were bigger, but at the same time, we grew so quickly that we were able to go back to AWS and negotiate with Amazon and get around 50% discount on our cloud costs to be able to offset that. So that's why I say we miscalculated, but we also got lucky on the economies of scale that we grew fast and we could renegotiate our contracts to balance that out. So far we're good.
Nice. All right, Scott. Little different. Y'all started way earlier, bigger company though. Y'all started out as part of Honeywell. Now you're your own business. So what did y'all think about and how did that change over time with launching the thermostats?
Yeah, great. So it goes back even beyond just the thermostat, Stacey. So we've kind of been in the pseudo cloud world before anybody was calling it the cloud. And we had the advantage, or maybe in hindsight, the disadvantage of having a service available for the security industry. We were a cloud provider for the security industry that transmitted alarm signals from, your home to a monitoring center. And so from the very early days, we were able to capture some recurring revenue out of that, which makes the costs a little more bearable. It was when we moved into the thermostat space that there's not an obvious recurring revenue stream there, that we really realized what the cost of a device is. And if you think about it, you're right, we've been in for a really long time. So our scale now is in the millions of connected customers. And you think about something really simple, if it costs just 15 cents per month for your cloud connectivity cost, and you scale at 1 million units per year, that's $1.8 million per year in connectivity costs. The following year, if you've added another million devices, it's now $3.6 million. The following year, it goes up by $1.8 million a year. That cloud connectivity cost, at least the way we manage our books, drops into your cost of goods sold. And it's almost an out-of-control challenge to maintain margins. So recurring revenue, finding services that are important and people value, that are willing to pay for, becomes critical. So, we've done that with thermostats around the energy market. We're doing some cool things with contractors around preventative maintenance that we can predict via how your thermostat or HVAC system is working. So those costs creep up on you, right? We kind of knew about them. And we built a system in a certain way that made those costs probably a bit higher in the beginning than they are today. We've changed our entire approach dramatically over the past 4 or 5 years, kind of get them under control. And now we're in a pretty good place.
All right, we're going to talk about what you changed in a minute, but I want to get Jonathan in here. So, Jonathan, you're at Twilio. Y'all are kind of some of the infrastructure providers. You just actually launched a product that actually brings you closer into that space. But how do you think about this problem for the companies that you're working with, and how are y'all trying to, I guess, categorize different businesses that might use different services and kind of match these things up?
I think it's a great question. I think one of the challenges we see across our broad customer base, so for those of you that don't know Twilio, we've both launched our new platform offering in the IoT space recently, but we also have the Electric Imp product portfolio. So Electric Imp is a platform company that's been going for a number of years here. So with that, we've got a very broad customer base using our IoT platforms today. And what I kind of see is that really you need to know, as Dave really talked about, trying to estimate those costs up front. That's a very difficult problem. You can try and look at the bandwidth you use, the maintenance you might need, the number of people. It changes with geography. It changes with all sorts of things. And there's almost two components to it. So there's the kind of fixed operating costs, be that the things you can predict. And then there's the sort of the ones that increase, hopefully linearly, or at least scale with the number of devices that you deploy. So you can kind of predict those, but it can be very, very challenging. And with that sort of increasing cost model as things scale, how do you then price or work out how to charge for that? And we see a number of customers who have a very upfront service model where they want to load the upfront cost to kind of amortize that cost of the service across a number of years. But we also see business models where people want to kind of discount the initial price and then have that ongoing monthly recurring or annual recurring element along that. So for me and for us, I think it's very important that a platform provider who's there to kind of amortize those costs across all of the different companies that use that platform as it was. I think it's quite important to have those two.
Oh, we've lost. Jonathan, we lost a little bit of what you said. You went silent for just a hot second. So
I was just saying it's important to have two business models for a platform company, really. So depending on the go-to-market for the end product, whether that's an upfront model or an ongoing service model, it's kind of important to have the sort of the options for the platform. Managing that ongoing cost, I think, is really critical to the overall product success.
And you had this idea of maybe 3 classes of devices. I feel like one was a revenue generating class of device. One was a maybe cost savings, or maybe it was efficiency kind of driven. And I don't remember the third one. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean in terms of those 3. But yeah, we have customers across all sorts, whether it's in industrial IoT or smart home IoT. I think in the smart home, the models are slightly different. But obviously your relationship direct with the consumer, it's important to have that connection in terms of billing if you're going to have that.
Oh, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening with your mic, but every now and then you're saying something and you go dark for a second there.
Okay, I'll see if I can fix that.
We'll see what happens. Maybe there's something happening on another program. But let's take it back to the guys who are building things. What would you like to see from providers like AWS and Twilio, since he's right there? Y'all can gang up on Jonathan if you'd like. But as you're planning out your next generation products, as you're thinking about all the issues like security, integrations with things like Madam A or Google or HomeKit, what do you want to see? Whoever wants to speak, I'll give it to Scott. You're nodding.
Yeah, so maybe my response here, Stacey, isn't what you expected. So we are generally treated like a public cloud provider, and because of that, the SLAs that go along with that from the platform companies tend to be about the same as everyone else gets. And we'd like to find a more hybrid approach where we're not quite private, right? We're not private cloud for sure, but we'd like to see SLAs that are more in line with what a private cloud provider might have. So some of my services are actually, our security services are on a private cloud, and our uptime and reliability, right, for a life safety type solution like security has to be 4 and 5 nines high. It's tough to get that in the public cloud environment. So we look to find a better approach with working with our providers.
Got it. Yeah, I imagine like if I hire you for leak detection, I don't ever want that to go down just because AWS went down.
Right.
Like, I need that. Dave, what would you like to see?
I mean, it's hard to say. The biggest thing was just the cost. I mean, looking at our financials every month, that's where we just get, that's our biggest thing. So we would love to be able to, I guess, shorter contracts. We'd love to be able to negotiate a little bit on quicker terms, and then have those costs come down. I think we're going to maybe try to get a little bit more creative with that going forward, and maybe negotiate a little bit harder. But that's kind of the biggest thing, I would say. They're really responsive and supportive. We have an account manager, all that kind of stuff now. So I think the service is great. Just the cost is really high.
Yeah, and so someone brought this up. Oh, Scott, go ahead.
There's one thing they could also do to help with Dave's point, because we agree the cost is too high, of course. And that is, there are technologies, right, that are coming to fruition pretty quickly, whether that's serverless cloud computing, function-based computing, that help bring those costs down. Getting them into market faster will help, right? Help reduce costs.
Okay. Jonathan, I want to give you a chance to respond to any of these things if you would like.
Yeah, no, I think cost is a huge element, and in many ways, anyone that's using one of the sort of global cloud providers, I guess we're all in the same boat there, really, in terms of the back end costs. I think that is a continuous challenge. One of the things that we do on our system, for example, is we both provide connectivity via Wi-Fi to a device or via cellular, so minimizing data usage from the device to the enterprise or to the cloud application is kind of important when you're paying for your data both on the connectivity bearer, the cellular bearer, and obviously connectivity through to the cloud platform. So I think working to minimize data usage is one way of kind of trying to improve that overall cost model, and a small improvement in terms of how often you connect and how much data you send can have a big impact when obviously you multiply it by the number of devices and the scale that's there. So one thing that we do on the INT platform, for example, is that we actually have something that we call an agent, which is a sort of one-to-one mapping of device to a sort of virtual device in the cloud, and that can provide any translation or translation of various protocols to minimize the data both between the device to the agent and between the agents to your cloud server and application. So that is one way, for example, that you can really cost optimize your data usage, and to try and bring down those overall compute costs, which, as you say, they do scale quite horribly sometimes.
Yeah, and I was actually surprised to hear that it's mostly the cloud costs, because I thought, the cost of, well, maybe not super surprised, but like I'm thinking about the developer costs associated with like anytime there's an iPhone, an OS update, there is the constant like, oh, now we've discovered this bug, quick, fix it. So there's those things, but those, it sounds like, are not the overarching concern for y'all. That's just, and I mean this for anyone.
If I can chip in there, I'd say I was surprised to hear that too, because in my experience, one of the challenges we see across our customer base is that the cloud costs, kind of everyone does that calculation up front to try and work out what that might look like, but what we see is that ongoing developer support cost, whether it's your DevOps team managing that cloud, or more than likely it's your actual software engineering team on the device responsible now for maintaining security updates. If there are vulnerabilities discovered and you need to patch your operating system on the device, who does that and how much does that cost? And for me, those hidden costs, particularly of security in the device and that constant kind of battle and race to keep on top of those things, that people cost around that can be a really significant part of the overall maintenance of devices. And I would say, when our customers, that's definitely a key care about, not just the sort of cloud compute costs, but actually the engineer time that you need to support a device 8 years after you've launched it, for example.
Dave, is that but that is not true for y'all?
No, I wouldn't say. I say we're in a little bit of different than that. On top of the, as far as cost goes, I was thinking, as you guys were talking too, is I think I kind of mentioned this before, but so I had a friend that I went to business school with who was actually, he had worked on the finance team at AWS. And when he left the team, I was kind of lamenting to him, like, these costs were out of control. And he's like, dude, just go renegotiate. I think that's something that we didn't, this kind of sounds stupid, but we didn't really realize that we had reached a volume that, like, we could actually go to Amazon and say, hey, we want a lower cost. And because of the volume, we were able to do that and drop our bill by 15%. So I think that's something to keep in mind as you grow as well, that you can actually reduce those costs if you push back a little bit. I
like it. And what about local? This is, we haven't really talked about this, but I think it's going to be an important component. Can you save by doing more things locally in the home? Or is that, obviously there's going to be cloud costs, but are y'all thinking about ways to engineer that to reduce that? Dave, Scott?
Yeah. So we include the micro SD card in the camera to, that helps with some of that. If people choose to use that, just view their events from the local storage, that obviously helps with that. We're kind of put some R&D investment into some different solutions, kind of like a more of a local hub. That's not the micro SD card, but maybe like a center device that would get the footage from all your cameras in the house. But we have not released anything on that. But that's definitely something that we're looking at.
Okay. Scott, anything?
Stacey, so most of what we do, right, the value that we unlock comes from the services that we can provide, which requires that connectivity. Unlike Dave, we're not doing a lot of cloud video storage on a device or even in our cloud. While we are in the camera space, it's an add-on to our overall security system today. But we do see a lot of things you can do to lower costs, right? And again, maybe it's because we were in it early, that the way we designed our initial clouds were not, today you would not consider it contemporary. So monolithic development, right? So a device that we would sell, maybe a water leak detector or a camera or a security system or a thermostat or another family of thermostats might each have an independent cloud, not a common cloud, which is a cost killer. It drives your cost to the roof because you don't get any benefit of scale. So driving common cloud, where today we use a device-facing cloud where all of our products connect into them, as opposed to a water leak cloud stitched together with a thermostat cloud and so on. Really a big reduction in cost. The other thing, again, we are a sizable company, but the test environment costs just as much as the production environment, and you need a robust test environment. And controlling that, however, every engineer cannot have their own test environment. It drives costs out of control. So these are little things that you learn. Again, a company of our size with, thousands of engineers and, again, millions of customers, we have to have a large test environment with lots of people playing on it. At the same time, a big production environment. So there are ways, that we've learned, now probably 4 or 5 years ago, that as you see these costs kind of skyrocket, you take a hard look at how you've designed it and you start fixing it, and you find those things that maybe aren't prevalent when you have 1 million connections, but when you have 7 or 8 million connections, it adds up quickly.
And I just want to clarify something, because I did think it was interesting. Both of y'all talked about volumes rising and helping support your existing clouds, right? So you talked about, yes, your costs were going up, but you were selling more cameras. And is that a viable business? I don't want to say is it a viable business strategy, because it kind of feels like a cloud Ponzi scheme for devices, but is that how people should be? I guess, how do you think about volume growing over time and how that may support or hurt you on the cost side, on the infrastructure cost side? And Dave, you talked about renegotiating, so that's a way that it can both help and hurt you. Scott, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so again, I come back to if you're in this business just to have a connected product without some kind of valuable service tied to it, that is a Ponzi scheme. It will eventually catch up to you as you scale, right? So your cost cost of goods sold crushes the margin that you make on your hardware, and then you're left with nothing. And I think we've seen kind of the highway littered with companies that have had that experience. So there has to, my opinion, is there has to be a stream of services. Now, not every single connection has to have recurring revenue tied to it, but if you can create revenue, I think Dave talked about long-term video storage, you start covering some of those costs. We do it with security, where our services are charged for services. We sell energy services to utilities off of our thermostats. And we're just now piloting our preventive maintenance services, where we can very accurately determine that something in your HVAC system is likely to fail. Not only predict that failure, but also recommend what we think the failure is, so that the contractor gets out there and with the right truck, one truck roll, one part with the right skill set. So I think those services, again, at scale are an absolute requirement, but there has to be somebody willing to pay. And so far, we haven't seen somebody willing to pay just to operate a thermostat remotely, right? We've tested it, by the way, and it just isn't there. We have seen utilities willing to pay to manage the grid. We have seen contractors willing to pay for preventative maintenance in place of service contracts. So we see some really cool business models in the market, but without those models, I do think it becomes I'm not sure it's a Ponzi scheme, but it becomes tough to stay ahead of the cost.
Yeah, I've got to think in headlines, and Ponzi scheme, that's a great headline. So I'm looking
on that.
That's fair. I'll take the blame. So looking at the poll we ran, which was what features might make you pay for a subscription, it talks about most people were really excited about add-on features that are truly add-on. And by that, I think about things like I think about things like I have the June oven and I love it. And they, every now and then, they don't actually charge me for it, but every now and then they're like, hey, now it's a slow cooker. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I would pay maybe to add a slow cooker. And maybe that's a one-time thing. Scott, your warranty and alerts, that's getting, that's at 20%. So people are kind of like, maybe. I think once something breaks and they see the utility of something like that, it's probably a higher sell. Like just the other day, I was in the market for a leak detection service and I wish I had one. So Dave, I know that you had started, Wyze actually just did a subscription plan, but it was a little unique because it was a pay what you want for people detection, which I think is a great add-on service that people are probably like, yeah, I want to know, who's at my door. How did that work for y'all?
Yeah, so subscriptions is a hot topic for us. I mean, I think we've always wanted to be kind of the anti-subscription company because users hate it, and as just the environment that we operate in today's IoT world, it's so hard to not do that. because of these ongoing costs, and frankly, because these days that's what VCs, if you have any kind of venture backing, that's all they want to see. And so you've got to balance a lot of different stuff in that realm. But so we tried to roll out subscriptions in the most customer friendly way that we could, and especially for our existing users. So what we did is we had this person detection, which originally we were using a partner and we were running it on Edge, and we were able to negotiate with them and get that service for free. So we just offered that for free to our customers without upcharging them. But Apple acquired our partner, and then it kind of left us hanging in the middle of the partnership. It was like 4 or 5 months after it started, after we'd already promised free person detection to everyone. So this is one of the toughest kind of moments of my professional careers, because all of a sudden we had promised millions of customers free person detection, and 4 or 5 months later we had to take it away. And so in kind of we were trying to kind of figure out what to do in that moment. I don't know if you've ever seen The Office, in the moment where like Michael Scott is like at the investor meeting and he's like promising all these things that he shouldn't have promised. I feel like we did a little bit of that to the users, where we like said, we're coming back with person detection, it's going to be free, it's going to be amazing, and everyone cheered. The reality of that is, we thought we had that figured out on the back end, but when we started building it, it's like, okay, we've got to build this on cloud, because if we wait to do it on Edge, it's going to take way too long. That's in development, but it's going to take another year or so. So we got to put it on cloud, and when we put it on cloud, we have all these extra costs, and all of a sudden we just promised it for free. Like, what do? We have these huge costs with person detection. We offered everyone for free. If we say everyone we're going to charge, they're going to kill us over it. And so, I was so stressed about this for a couple weeks, and I was like, what if we just did like a name your price model? Like, what if we just said like, hey, we'll cover the costs. We've been from the beginning, we've invested so much in our user relationships. Like, our price is as low as we can possibly get. We give away as many features as we possibly can. Like, what if we cash in that relationship for this one time and see if customers will choose to pay? And so that's what we rolled out, this person detection name your price program for our existing users. And then we did end up creating a Cam Plus option for any new users that we didn't make that promise to. And that's $2 a month, which gets you the person detection and extended cloud storage, all for complete motion capture is what we call it. So that was the big test, and I am pleased to report that has gone. Like, I just love our users, man. I can't even like I was just totally just put ourselves out there. We thought we really screwed it up this time, and they just came through for us. So I would say roughly half people chose to pay, and most of those people, I would say most, but many of those people chose to pay what we asked them to pay. So we had a suggested price, like, this is what it costs, this is what we need you to pay. And most of the people that chose to pay paid that price.
Wow.
Which is incredibly cool. So, I mean, of course, half the people chose $0, which is fine. Keep our promise. They're happy, we're happy. And as of right now, we are sustainable. Like, it's not like we're making tons of money off this, but we are at a sustainable point where, as long as people keep on making those contributions, because they can change it anytime. So as long as we keep them happy and they keep volunteering to make those contributions, we will be sustainable for the free or name your price person detection for our legacy grandfathered users.
Yay, that's great.
Super exciting for sure.
I'm like, as someone who has a Wyze camera, I didn't subscribe, but I don't use it. I don't use the people detection, but I was also like, oh, I should just do this. But then I started loading up my. I am shamed. I am shamed.
It's all good.
So I think Dave hits on like some really critical points. The subscription issue at the consumer level is a real problem, right? I mean, I think consumers, even as everywhere you look, it's, economy as a service going forward. People are oversubscribed. I'm oversubscribed. I just on music listening things, I have far too many. I only listen to one. But I think the consumer subscriptions are going to be a challenge. And I think cameras are probably, Dave, good for you, the best opportunity, right, to get consumers to pay because of long-term storage. I think, however, right, my customer base, the consumer is the end market for us. Our customer base at Resideo is primarily security dealers or HVAC contractors. And our service models are about enabling value for them that they can then provide back to that end market. So just a different way to look at the service model. There's a consumer, there's a home service provider, which is kind of where we play. And then there's a third party that might be home warranty companies, utilities around energy services, insurance companies, and a whole host of them that can bring another way to potentially monetize it. Again, I don't want to oversell these costs, but I remember talking about this with you, Stacey, years ago in Brooklyn, right? About the hidden secret of IoT is this underlying cloud cost, and it does have to be considered, and you have to find a path through it. So congrats to Dave for doing that, and lots of other companies as well, but it is an important component.
Well, we're about a month in, so give me the congrats in a year or two to see if it's still working. So far, so good.
And Jonathan, are you seeing, because you have many customers, are you seeing anything innovative happening, not just, I mean, maybe in the smart home, but maybe elsewhere that might work in the smart home in terms of business models that might help support things for a long time to come?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a really interesting conversation. I think, Dave, fantastic kudos in terms of, coming up with an innovative model or innovative solution to that problem. And I was really thinking of kind of, the parallels to our new microvisor offering. What we want to do is we want to kind of, give our customers that choice in terms of the features and the components that they use. So we're very much breaking our platform into its kind of constituent pieces and then offering those in a sort of bite-sized amount. So we're seeing customers that want some elements of an IoT platform, but they don't want to go all in terms of the way that you might have done with some platform providers of old. So we're very much see this as more of the way that, let's say, Amazon approaches cloud services with EC2 in terms of a base feature set, and then you can add the various bits and pieces on top of that. That is the approach that we're taking with the microvisor platform offering. So everyone gets the sort of base, get your code onto the device as a feature, and then there's an additional set of features and obviously costs and things that come with that, depending on how much you actually choose to use or consume. And I think that that bite-sized approach to all the different features and pieces, and also that kind of choice of, do you want this to be an upfront model, or do you want to go with the recurring revenue model, which as discussed can be so difficult, particularly in the consumer space. Then I think giving companies the option to kind of almost decide, where do I want that cost to be? Do I want it to be upfront or amortized, across the lifetime of the device? I think that's an important kind of change or innovation in terms of, how you can now pay for and fund some of these devices.
Okay. Yeah, and as we're getting to the end of this session, I want to kind of wrap it up with maybe some really good advice from people. So you talked about components, and I think we're about to get to a place where, I think we're about to get to a place where we're going to start seeing everything have connectivity built in. And so like my washing machine, maybe it only needs to talk to the local network most of the time to say like, hey, your clothes are done. And then once a year or once every month, maybe call back to the home cloud to be like, hey, here are my settings. Am I going to break anytime soon? So I would love to get your advice for each of y'all in the things that you've learned in how to build a product and a service that is sustainable, and how to maybe think about what contributes to those costs, like how much time you connect, what connectivity you use. So any concrete advice you have to people to, avoid the, oh, we promised our users something and now we can't deliver problem, which is not, y'all handled it so well, but it's also probably not something y'all were like, yay, we're here.
Causing me so much stress you don't even know. Well,
so,
I mean, I will say just from the so we started this company in 2017 with the original Wyze Cam. We did our first round of funding in 2018, about a year later, and at that time we had no service revenue whatsoever. It was all hardware revenue, and the valuation that we got was about 3x our hardware revenue. So we went back out for another round of funding right before the coronavirus, which was absolutely terrible timing. So maybe that's part of the this. But we met just a ton of venture capitalists. Like we met with tons of them. We want to get the right fit because we have a very unique business model. We don't have high margins, so we don't want like super money hungry investors. We want people that are like in it for the long run, right? And so we met with a lot of these investors, but the difference between that kind of 2 year and a half gap for what investors are looking for was just like shocking to me, honestly. Like suddenly none of them want hardware revenue. They don't even care about hardware revenue. Like they'll barely give you like a 1x valuation on the hardware revenue. All they want to see is the service revenue. And I think that's why you're seeing companies like IFT and Wink and like everyone is going to these more subscription models because you can't get the VC money that you used to on the hardware revenue alone. And I think that's something that's like we have tried to fight so hard on behalf of our users. But I think if you're starting in this industry, like you have to realize that if you do not have the service revenue component, you have a very, very uphill battle. And if you're trying to raise money, like good luck finding an investor that's going to be interested in that model because nobody wants hardware companies anymore. And I think that's a really sad, and it's been a really sad realization for myself and us trying to figure this out and navigate it. And we try to be creative, right? And how do we create the service revenue? And eventually we'll be profitable so we can do whatever we want. But as long as you're venture backed, like you got to get that service revenue somehow. So for us, it's like charging, it's putting that service revenue on anything that we would have, like it makes sense, cloud costs, like longer cloud storage. Obviously we have to pay more cost for that. So it makes sense for us to put a service revenue on top of that. Some of our AI features, person detection, we're coming out with pet detection, package detection, all that kind of stuff. Those require more cloud processing fees that we can attach that service revenue to, and it makes sense for the customers. So I think if you're just my advice as you're thinking about this business model and how you should go, I think if you're thinking you're not going to have subscriptions like we originally were hoping to do, I think you're going to have a really hard time finding VC money, and just get creative with how you do that so you don't upset your customers in the best way possible. I think that's my biggest lesson and takeaway for people that are just getting into this business.
All right, Scott?
Yeah, so Dave, I think he nailed that. So I think you have to be thinking that way from day one. But if you're a company coming into the space, I think you also think about how you develop, like, use contemporary technology, right? Contemporary cloud infrastructure. Serverless technology is going to take some cost out. Build platforms. Don't build a product. But if you have 2 or 3 products in your platform, they need to all connect exactly the same. You have to platformize, if that's the word, platformize it across your portfolio so you're not adding costs and servers or cloud costs associated with individual products. And then, yeah, I mean, just to jump on Dave's back a bit, the find a service, right? So it's not only the VC firms that look for services, it's everybody, right? The value of RMR is 25 to 30x the value of a hardware dollar. So it's a big deal no matter what part of the business scale that you're in. So look at those costs up front and find a path to service.
Okay. And Jonathan, I feel like you were probably talking when you talked about, hey, break it into modular pieces and pay for what you want. That's good. We're over time by a minute, but people really want to know what y'all think about IFT's decision to charge people based on, to basically do a pay what you want and change their business model. I feel like y'all may not want to talk too much about, I don't know if, I feel like people may want you to drag on IFT a little bit. I don't think y'all are going to want to do that. But I mean, Dave, you kind of obliquely mentioned it by, talking about the venture backing and their need for services. But do you have any, some of y'all actually work with IFT. So do you have any thoughts on their kind of abrupt shift in business model? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. They came out with a name your price option like a week after we did. We thought that was interesting timing on our side. But IFT is a partner of ours. They're a great partner for us. I think they're just feeling the pressure that all of us are feeling in the industry. I feel for them because I know we feel it as well, right? And you have these cloud costs that are ongoing, that are expensive, and it's if you don't, either you have a Ponzi scheme or you have an ability to pay for those cloud costs. And I love that word, Ponzi scheme. I got to take that back to my team. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I guess I would. Subscriptions they're not fun for anyone, but like if I have a little bit more sympathy for IFT, maybe because I've been in their position than maybe some of your users out there would. But it's just the nature of the VC world and where we're at today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm also a fan if they were one of our very first partners. But I'm sure they're facing the same challenges everyone faces with cloud costs. But I'll look to someone else, right? I won't name a company name, but there was a really interesting sprinkler company last year that had sold at least several thousand connected smart sprinkler systems, and eventually went out to their user base and saying, you either have to start paying us, right? Literally emails, right? You either have to start paying us a monthly fee or we're going out of business. And they don't exist today. So I think this is a challenge, right? Especially for people that don't have scale. Wyze has built great scale. We have great scale. A lot of big companies in the space have great scale, but these individual device companies that have gone out with some type of freemium model and haven't been able to prove the services side, if they haven't already run into trouble, probably will.
Jonathan?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really hot topic. I mean, I woke up to the news this morning and saw the Nest Secure product has been end of life, right? So it doesn't just affect small companies. It can be any company, any product, any business model. And I think personally, as a consumer speaking, that's one of the things that always scares me about these types of products is how long will this last for? How can I protect myself against that? And I think trying to kind of have a statement or a forward-looking position on what might the future hold, I think would be an important thing to kind of address that. I think it's and from some of the customers that we've had, and we've had customers who have very sadly gone out of business, and what has that then meant for those consumers who did invest their kind of hard-earned dollars up front to buy those products and expect that service. I think having some kind of commitment to kind of deal with that in the future would be great, and I guess, a solution to that, I think there are many, but a solution could be that, obviously if the device and service is hosted by the platform company or the cloud company, then if there was some kind of, honor in terms of commitment from the platform company to continue that for the consumers where possible, that would be a really nice thing. Do I think it's possible? Sure. Is it likely? Probably not. But it would definitely make me feel happier as a consumer to know that there's some kind of somebody's got your back if the worst was to happen. And it's one of those things that we see sadly all too often.
Well, that will be our next panel on our next Smart Home Conference, which is how the heck do we degrade gracefully and kill our product without alienating consumers? It's going to be super fun finding people to talk about that. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for doing this chat with us. Everybody, it is time for a networking break. Go meet some new people. Go visit our sponsors in the Expo Center. And round of applause for all of our candidates, our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys on the screen.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you. Bye-bye.